Welcome back to the Blame Game for week 2 of the Spring Split 2017. It's your boy Mark Z, ready to break down all that community criticism for the week. And despite the fact that a lot of teams' outlooks drastically changed, the fans did a pretty good job keeping it in perspective and spreading the blame around evenly. So good job, Reddit. We'll kick things off with the Immortals vs Cloud9 series. Immortals got crushed 2-0 this week by Cloud9, and most of the team came under fire. The most maligned individual, though, was POBelter, with some of the people calling him Int POBelter. I went back and rewatched the games to find out exactly what went wrong for POBelter, and it was a combination of getting slightly unlucky, C9 punishing him really hard, and his own mistakes. In Game 1, Dardoch forced a lot of ganks around mid that often didn't help him out that much. What causes POBelter's initial 15 CS deficit is a slightly risky roam into the bot river for vision at 6 minutes into the game. Now, without knowing Lee's positioning and having no summoners, this is slightly risky to go for, but it's very unfortunate that Lee Sin is already behind him, having taken his race. This forces POBelter to take a super long path back to mid lane, and Contracts isn't even done yet. He continues to harass POBelter in his own jungle and makes it pretty much impossible to CS easily versus the Orianna. The 15 CS differential is bad, but not the game-breaking play. That comes 9 minutes into the game when Dardoch tries to force another gank around mid lane. This really wasn't a good idea to go for, given the fact that C9 likely had vision of him, given the way that he and Lee Sin were interacting just prior to this, as well as the fact that the wave is pushing into POBelter when they go for it. Contracts is in the area to turn this gank, the wave goes into POBelter's turret, making him miss a ton of CS, and then it bounces back to Jensen, who freezes yet again on a summonerless Cassiopeia. This makes the repeat gank on the extended POBelter all too easy. Most of this is coming off the back of just one mistake in the roaming and then a gank that was too forced. In Game 2, we get to continue to see how much Contracts likes to help around mid at 4 minutes when he's freezing the wave for Jensen. This causes more difficulties for POB in lane as he starts falling a little bit behind the Syndra, which is understandable pre-6 in this matchup. I actually think POBelter played this game okay conceptually, but the execution was off and he missed way too many fishes. The game was also filled with plays like this one at 20 minutes, but the communication on this team is likely such a mess, it's hard to blame a single individual for any of these plays looking bad. POBelter, and honestly the rest of Immortals, did not play particularly well this series, but what happened to him felt more like C9 exploiting the mid lane really hard. Our second item on the ticket is TL's draft phase. Admittedly, this wasn't the most talked about topic this week, but it did take up the #1 slot in the Phoenix 1 vs TL thread, and it's something I just found personally interesting and wanting to talk about. Starting with the point made in the comment about how TL lost 2 games in the series versus TSM while playing the Kha'Zix Rengar matchup, I actually don't really think the strategy was that good overall. Reignover really hasn't looked like himself all year, and he doesn't play Lee Sin. So what TSM is trying to do here is either force the Kha'Zix versus a C tier matchup, or get Rengar and play it into Kha'Zix, which is about an S into A tier respectively. There's also the option to have TL ban both Kha'Zix and Rengar and drop the Camille or LeBlanc, but that sounds pretty sketchy to me. This strategy is really only effective if the Rengar heavily outperforms the Kha'Zix. In this series, it's hard to say that Svenskeren had a huge influence over the games, especially compared to what could have been done in the draft with those resources. Golden Glue has looked best on control mages, and you could have targeted a couple of those and gotten Bjergsen in a really favorable matchup potentially. It's all speculative about which draft strategy would have been better, and ultimately TSM won, but looking at Sven's Rengar performance, it's hard to say that this was the reason for the victory. For Nori though, this is a totally different story because he put in work versus TL and made it look like a very strong strategy. Now I admit that this is being results oriented, but the strength of this strategy really does come down to how effectively you can exploit the Rengar's strengths. This of course raises the question, well, what should TL have done differently? Honestly, I'm not too sure. They seem very limited in their champ pools, which affects how much they can do in the draft. Reignover doesn't play Lee Sin, which makes this strategy very strong for anyone with a good Rengar who's on blue side. Similarly, Piglet is not too strong on the utility AD carries, and we see them passing those up all the time. And Matt has gotten counterpicked and kind of destroyed in a lot of these lane matchups. It's hard to pinpoint exactly how much of the blame to give to the coaching staff and how much to give to the players. With these champion pool restrictions, I honestly can't say leaving up the Rengar was the worst choice, but I still think the draft deserves some blame as well. The high five comment of the week is brought to you by you, actually, and I appreciate everyone responding to my video last week. I had a ton of responses. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to all of them, but I had to make the cutoff at some point. I sent out an email saying, give me what you want me to say. You can donate to my PayPal if you want. And that's what it was, so let's get into it. Custom border, you really gotta work on your Lee Sin skills, from Justin. Josh is the better host of Post Time League. Good fucking joke. Check out a new streamer trying to make it big, Twitch TV/Jetta. I'll put it up on the screen. She's funny, goofy, and informative, from Butthead. Both Alex Petshaft and Danielle Belasov are boosted, from Rafi. Taxation is theft, Google non-aggression principle, Dale K. Hey, it's DZap. Hit me up at Twitch TV/DZap001. Please give dating advice on the show, John Smith. I don't think you want dating advice from me given that I'm single. Hey, just wanted to say I'm looking for a job and my Instagram is JustBased. Happy birthday shout out to Kit Dominaski. Watch the stream of a D4, D3 jungler with all your questions answered at Twitch TV/IanVV3. Matthew Hartley just wanted to let his friend know that he sucks at predicting stuff and to show this image on screen. Moving on to the actual comment of the week, it's a twofer from Sizhow and Dildo Schwaggins. Both of them had some pretty hilarious stats about Echo Fox. All things considered though, props to the org and team for, fingers crossed, turning their fortunes around. That does it for this week's episode of The Blame Game. I know it was only 2 topics, but I felt like I was running fairly long on them in the script, so what can you do? I'll see you guys next week. Hopefully the lighting / my face looks better. It's hard to know when I'm filming, so let me know in the comments how it looks.